If we want to assign a material to an object, we simply go into our material editor, right-click on our material, and say Assign Material to Selection. We now have this blue cube. Now, if I want to assign additional materials to this object, it's as simple as selecting the faces that we want to have a new material, right-clicking and saying Assign Material to Selection. Now, when I did this, Max went in and it said, hey, this object already has a material, and he's trying to assign a new material to just a subset or a subcomponent of this object. So what it does behind the scenes, if we go in here and we say, show me this material, is it adds what's known as a multisub node to this object. And this multisub node now has two different materials being fed into it, and we have these channels here. I can go in here and I can name these channels, so I can call this something like blue, and I'll go ahead and call this one red. If I go and I actually look at my object, and I go over to, I have to be an edit poly or an edit element, and I go in and I look for the material IDs, you'll see that it now has two different material IDs. We have one, and then we also have two. And you can see by the names that those correlate to the numbers that we have here in our multi-sub node. So let's say I have this face right here, and I decide I want it to be blue, or sorry, red instead of blue. I can simply go and say set ID to number 2. This face is now using the second material. Or if I wanted, I could take these faces that were originally red and go ahead and just set those to ID 1. They're now using the first material. I can also use this to select IDs. So if I want to select all the faces that are red, I just put the number 2 in here and hit select ID, and it'll select it. Or I can go in here and I can choose 2 from here. I can also disable this clear selection, and then I get the ability to add to my selection. Now, one important thing you have to be aware of is that once a multi-sub has been assigned to the object, if you want to add additional materials, let's say this green material here, you should do it through this interface. You should not go in here and select a face, let's say this face, and say assign material to selection. The reason for this is because if I go in here and I look at my material, what Max did was it kind of did the same process it did the first time, where it says, hey, he has a face selected and he's assigning it this green material, but this green material is not this multi-sub. So it goes and it makes another multi-sub and then connects the green material to that multi-sub. So we start to get these nested multi-subs, and things can become very confusing when the student goes in here and he now wants to assign a green face to a red face or something. You can get into a situation when you're working with a complex model where this is now the multi-sub being used by the material. This one is no longer being used. But you might go in here and say, hey, I don't see my green in here at all. I don't know what number it is. So what you should really do is, rather than go in here and select that face, you should use that set ID as the method of assigning this. So I would go in here and I would select this, and then I want to go ahead and set the green material. Well, the green material is not available. So I will go to my multi-sub here, and I will just simply say add. I now have a third channel, and it gives me this new material. And then I can go in here and just set this to my green. Or if I already had a material, let's just make this ray trace material here. I can simply go in here and just connect my ray trace material to the third slot. So in summary, doing the select a face and then assign a material via that selection is good for the very first time, or is fine for the very first time that you're assigning two materials to the object. But once you have the multi-sub assigned to your material, or sorry, once you have the multi-sub assigned to your object, it's better to go into this interface here to assign your material selection. So I'll go ahead and set this to 3. All right, now we have that ray trace material. The other thing to be aware of is the fact that these numbers kind of loop. So we have no ID 4, but what happens is we go ID 1, 2, 3, and then it repeats. So ID 4 is the same as ID 1. ID 5 would be the same as ID 2. So it just repeats over and over again. Now, the materials that we assign, they're independent of anything related to the UVs for our object, but we can go in and actually filter what we see inside of the UV editor based off of the material ID. So here I can go in and I can say show me material ID 1, and it'll show me just the faces for material 1. I could go in here and say show me material ID faces number 2, and then I see just those faces. Or I can say show me all IDs. So this can be nice for if you have different UV rips on your model. Let's say you're working on a house and you have a UV rip for a tileable texture for your roof that goes to the 0 to 1 space, and then you've got your sides of your homes with the brick tileable texture, and they're taking up the 0 to 1 space. It can be hard working with multiple sets of UVs stacked on top of one another. So either you can keep those UVs off to the side. So we could take, let's say, this face, and I will offset that in the U direction by 1. So now they're in one UV set over, or they can remain stacked on themselves, and then I can just filter their faces using this filter box right here.